welcome to Create the Impossible. This is a panel that I have been doing for the past couple years where I invite cosplay guests to come in and chat about their cosplay journey, things that they've made, how they've come to be creating their own impossible creations. Now, this panel's set up a little bit different probably from other panels you've seen today. We are actually recording for the podcast Cosplay Stitch and Seam. I am VFire Cosplay, and I'm one of the co-hosts for the Cosplay Stitch and Seam. And we have for our guests today...
Bunch of losers.
Well, is that really how you can introduce yourself?
That's it. That's the end.
That was it.
That's it.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
no, that
Well,
was...
fine. I will talk you guys up then. We have Renna of Renegade Cosplay, who is in the gorgeous crown. And which character from Shield Hero?
Morelia Q. Melremark.
Oh, the
That
full
one.
name.
And then we also have Addie, and my brain just broke, and I forgot your cosplay name.
Because she just changed
I
it.
just changed it. It's now Collete Cosplay.
Colette Cosplay, that's right. Okay, yes. So we also have Colette Cosplay. These two are super awesome and have been cosplaying for quite a few years now. And they both compete in Masterclass and are pretty crazy awesome like crafters. They do a lot of really cool stuff. Create the Impossible, again, is a panel about the cosplay journey. It's here to encourage you that if you don't feel like you can make cosplay, we're here to show you that like it can be something. You can get to that point where you create the impossible. All right, and shall I give it over to you guys?
Yeah. There's one more second.
Just keep
Okay, one more second.
talking.
Let's see. For those who don't know, I've been running this podcast for over a year now. The podcast is 1 year old. I co-host it with Pannon. You can clap. Yeah. Yeah, that's we have over 50 episodes and we get about 1,000 downloads a month. It's pretty fun.
That's dope.
Yeah, Renna, people hear your voice a lot. Because it gets over 1,000 downloads a month and you're on the
Only
podcast.
like 3 episodes.
Yeah, that's 3 good episodes.
Those are the ones that get 1,000 downloads. Those 3.
Yes. I'll have to look it up to be for sure, but I bet it is.
I think we're almost there. We have plugged it in at least. So.
Yay!
It's glitching and...
The computer is trying
We
to
didn't
work.
have time to make this PowerPoint pretty in any way.
But luckily, those of you listening don't have to see it.
I might steal some photos from you guys to put on the blog.
Totes my goats.
Yeah.
Is it working?
For those who don't know, the
really out
podcast
of
started off as a
focus.
blog.
Either that or my contacts are worse
Oh,
than I
hey! I will mess with or maybe David will. Thank you, David.
Go, tech guy, go.
David wins! He's the hero we all need. Woo!
There we go.
All right.
Beautiful.
From novice to New York.
That's me.
That's one way to describe your
All
life.
right.
Yeah.
You guys take it away.
Cool. So I'm going to introduce myself first and kind of how I got started. I've always been a nerd, but like different levels of nerd. I tried to stick first in the accepted versions of nerddom, which in my youth meant being a book nerd. But even being a book nerd showed that I was secretly a cosplayer at heart. This is the first handmade Halloween costume I ever had. I was attempting to recreate the outfit on the cover of that book, but in my favorite colors. I was also a Slytherin even then.
It's so cute. It's little Renna.
It is. It's baby me. Circa like 2007. So I wasn't that baby. But my grandma made almost this entire outfit. I kind of just watched and cheered and said, no, that's not how it should go. And another sign that I was always meant to be a cosplayer, and they will deny that these are cosplays if you show them, but these are my parents. Right? My dad is Forrest Gump. He used to run marathons dressed as Forrest Gump. Like, that's what he did. And then that's my mom in a Halloween costume, but you can tell she's taking it very seriously. Yes. I've also always been a theater nerd. So here's some of my theater days. I did a live version of Clue where I was Professor Plum. That's me as Agatha Christie in the middle. I actually have a degree in theater. My minor is in theater directing. So I've always been a theater nerd. And at some point in my teenage years, I played Twilight Princess, which continues to be my favorite video game of all time. And I decided someday I was going to be Twilight Princess Zelda because it was finally a Zelda with brown hair. And I had brown hair, and I didn't know wigs were a thing. And so I actually grew out my hair for the purpose of being Twilight Princess Zelda. This is actually the picture that we took on the day we cut it. To say, because I remember I was walking around my college campus and I saw someone with really long hair, and I remember thinking, man, she looks like a polygamist, and then realizing my hair was longer. And so I was like, time to be gone. And then I moved to college, and I met a friend who had cosplayed before, and I was like, you've done what before? You've worn a costume outside of Halloween? I was like, I'm not brave enough to do that, but I will make a Halloween costume. I will hand make a Halloween costume, and I still didn't feel prepared enough to make Princess Zelda, even though that was still my dream. So I went with the Brawl version of Chic, because apparently I thought that was easier. It's all entirely upholstery vinyl that my grandfather had in his garage that was all the wrong color, so I painted it all with acrylic paint. Just straight from the craft 50-cent bottles of acrylic paint on there, and a bodysuit that was meant to fit my dad, so it was all saggy, and a wig I bought at Walmart for $5. And like random, I look like I'm wearing a toilet paper turban, because it was pretty much just strips of paper. I also made these costumes for my brothers. So they were my Zant and Link. They were so cute and little. And that was the first time I ever made a costume. And it was Halloween of 2012. And part of me is glad that I didn't know Banzai even existed then, because I probably would have tried to wear that here. And I'm glad that didn't happen, because it was not a costume that should have been seen by people who knew anything about costumes. But after that, I had so much fun making that costume that I was like, I can't wait until Halloween to do this again. We gotta do this sooner. And so I went online and I just Googled conventions, and I found out that there was a convention happening in March. So I started making my next costume, and then I found out there was such a thing as competitions for making costumes, and I was like, heck yeah. And I distinctly remember thinking while I was making my costume, I'm gonna win, because no way has anyone ever worked this hard on a costume. I knew nothing. So this is what I actually consider to be my first cosplay, because it was the first one that I intended to wear to a convention. And I kind of jumped in head first, working with thermoplastics and stuff. But I didn't make the pants. I'm just wearing yoga pants. I did make the shirt, and boy, that was an endeavor. I pulled my hair back and sprayed it black, and then got a bangs clip in. I was like, good enough. And then after that, I kept going. This is actually the costume that had me meet VFire. Because I wanted to make Marth from Super Smash Bros. And I really wanted to make his sword, and I had no freaking idea what I was doing. So I went to the internet and said, Internet, I'm trying to make a sword. And that's like the siren call from Mercedes.
It is.
She just swooped in and was like, I am here.
It's like, I like swords.
I like swords. Let me teach you. And she gave me lots of great tips on how to make a sword that I promptly ran out of time to use. So that sheath is just a block of wood strapped to my side. There is not a hole in it for a sword to go into. It is just a block of wood that I painted, and I'm wearing jeans. Whatevs. And then something happened. Something happened in the 6 months from making this. No, it wasn't even 6 months. 3 months from making this costume to the next Banzai. And something in my brain broke, because the very next thing I made was this. That's all applique. That's not paint.
Did it break, or did you have a stroke of inspiration? Because that cosplay was amazing.
Maybe that's what it was. But I kind of yeeted into cosplay. And I always feel bad talking to cosplay beginners, because I kind of missed that part in my brain. I can only YOLO.
For
and then
listeners, the picture she has is
of my
Midna.
Midna,
Yeah.
which was my first costume that kind of got me noticed. It got shared by a bunch of Nintendo pages. So ironically, I still have not and probably never will cosplay Twilight Princess Zelda, but I do cosplay the Twilight Princess. So that's all that matters. And I did a lot of stuff solo for a while. I had friends come and go, but I move at such an insane pace with crafting that I tend to leave people behind until I met this nerd.
Hi. So, a little precursor to me getting into cosplay. So I in high school was what you would classify as a closet nerd, in the fact that on the outside I was not super nerdy. I was like, oh yeah, I like Harry Potter, and like that was
book
it.
nerds. That's where we hid in high
It's
school.
the gateway nerd.
It is the gateway nerd. Book nerds.
The gateway cosplay drug.
Exactly.
Like books.
But on the like down low, I was watching hundreds of animes. Like I have seen so many anime from like early mid 2000s because that's all I was watching. But no one knew about it. And then I went to college and I went and I got this job and I met a girl and she had a Naruto symbol on her shirt.
It's fun pointing out that this is actually the same girl that got me into cosplay.
So
We met her, two independent people, and she got us both into cosplay.
yeah.
She now doesn't cosplay very much, but she still does a little.
But I like asked her, I was like, hey, isn't that like from an anime? And she was like, yeah. And we got talking about anime and she invited me to this game night full of anime nerds. And I went and I was like, oh, you guys like talk about anime. You actually like tell people you're into it, which was really weird for me. But it was also really cool because I was like, oh yeah, I've seen all of those anime, or I haven't seen that one. I should watch that one. And so I kind of got to know them. And then they were like, hey, there's this Comic-Con coming up. Like, do you want to go? And I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. I've always wanted to go to Comic-Con. Like,
Was it the first?
I think so.
I think it was the first Salt Lake
the
Comic-Con.
first Comic-Con before it went crazy.
No, we don't have to talk about that now.
And so I was like, yeah. And they're like, we're all going to cosplay. Ironically, we were all going to cosplay from the same thing, and then they all dropped, and I was the only one that finished.
I was not in that
Cosplay
group.
woes.
Yes. But they got me into it because I'd been sewing since I was 12. So I knew how to sew. So I was like, sure, that sounds like fun. So I made the Young Justice version of Robin, and oh dear, was it a hot mess. You can't see it in this photo, but the belt was just fabric hot glued around random things from the dollar store and hot glued onto a strip of fabric. And I was wearing leggings, and the cape is just safety pinned around my neck, and that wig is borrowed from a friend. But anyways, I had a lot of fun at the convention being dressed up. And so I was like, this is kind of fun. I kind of want to get into this and get better at it. And then they're like, oh, well, there's another con coming up in a few months.
Banzai.
Anime Banzai. And so I was like, oh, yeah, well, I'm totally cosplaying to that. And so I made Kakashi for that one. And that was a hill in my cosplay journey, I like to call it, because it was like the make or break point of, am I going to keep doing this? Because that costume was way harder than I was anticipating, and I hated it in the end, but I was able to push past it. But another thing about that con is that's actually where we first cosplayed together.
Yeah, she told me when we first met at this game night that she loved Blue Exorcist, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love Blue Exorcist. And she said, I've always wanted to be Rin, and I said, if you be Rin, I'll be Mephisto for Banzai. And at this point, it was like 3 weeks to Banzai. And I was like, I don't care. At that point, my brain had already broken. So I was like, I can make a full suit, a full 3-piece suit in 3 weeks. This is fine. And I did.
You did.
And I did.
Yeah. But it was super fun, and I found out it's way more fun cosplaying with other people than just by yourself, because you like always have someone to hang out with and be with.
And to do cool poses with.
Yes, like this fun pose.
It's fun.
And so after that, my brain didn't break to the same degree that Renna's did. Mine was a slower uphill battle.
You were also a college student.
Yes.
So
Being
you had
a
to deal
college
with
student
that.
at the same time is hard because you have school and a college student's pay, which is nothing. And cosplay costs a lot of money, so...
I didn't discover cosplay until my final semester of college, which I thank you, heaven. Otherwise, I never would have graduated.
Yes. And so after that, so this is one of my most recent costumes that I made, Ranna from Fire Emblem. And this was the first costume that I made that I felt proud of. That I wore it and I went, there are only a few things on this that I would change, which is really good because normally there's a lot of things I'd change. And so it took me, I've been cosplaying for 5 years. So it took me about 5 years to reach a point where I felt pretty good about what I was doing. But the entire process up until that was still really fun. And we had a lot of times where so these are just a couple of
This is us together.
our group cosplays.
Because we're friends.
And it's been super fun, just like doing the hard stuff.
Yeah, and one thing that you don't see in these pictures, we could try to YouTube it, was we work really well together on a performance level. Our strength in competition often comes from our performances. We have a really similar style. We're both pretty theater-y. And so one of the things we most love to do together is perform. There have been times where we're like, who cares what the quality of the costume is as long as you can get it on your body so that we can get on stage. Because being on stage with this nerd is so fun.
Right back at you.
I love it. So that's the end of our PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Good job. No, that's
Yeah.
really cool.
So now it's like Q&A
You can
or
clap.
something. I don't know. Oh, thanks.
I love the enthusiasm. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's
so
about
that's
us.
what we prepped.
Awesome.
Is talking about us, and that's it.
wonderful. I love it. At this point, so this is for those who just came in. We're recording for a podcast on this. It's a little bit of a different setup. If you guys want to come up and ask Renna and Addie any questions about their cosplay journey, about getting into cosplay, we have a microphone up here. I really want to put out there, like, Renna, even though you think that, like, you dove right into it and your brain did break pretty early on. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But, like, we all still started somewhere, and you still did too. And it was really cool actually seeing all your book costumes and, like, it's like we all really do start somewhere. And for anyone who doesn't think that they can make cosplay or even just get into it, you don't even have to just make it. You can purchase it. You can.
Oh yeah, heck
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
all sorts of different things. Like,
You buy that stuff.
Yeah.
we just want to make it this, like, it's not an impossible thing to get out there and become the characters that you want to be. And so if you guys have any questions, yes. Yeah,
if
so yeah,
you-
there's a microphone up here, and I'm gonna go ahead and scooch it.
Yeah, if people don't feel comfortable talking to the microphone, we can always just repeat their
Yeah,
question.
we can repeat the question.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Have you ever completely remade an outfit before? Because I have one that I made last year, and I'm currently in the process of remaking just to make it better, but just thought I'd ask.
Yes, I have. So a few years ago, what would that be? You know what I mean? If you read my mind, do you know what I'm thinking of?
I think I know what you're thinking of. Yeah.
What year was that? Was that 15, 14?
That would have been
15. 2015. We entered the Banzai contest with costumes from Laughing Under the Clouds, Dante Niwara. And I was wearing a kimono, and I was cross-playing? Wow. Cross-playing, and I was wearing a kimono, and I decided to make the kimono using traditional techniques, namely silk painting, which I'd never done before. And so, of course, the first thing to try it on is a giant kimono. And so I silk painted this kimono, and it was a hot freaking mess. It was... I had also never worked with silk before, and I bought the wrong kind, and it was way too lightweight, and everything. The kimono was just bad. We won a craftsmanship award that year, which still baffles me to this
baffles us
day
all.
because none of us were happy with those costumes. But I made that kimono, and it was just awful. But it's a really beautiful kimono in the show. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to be okay with this. And I still have the original kimono. It's in a ball at the bottom of my closet in shame for 4 years now. And I completely remade the kimono using applique and satin stitching, which is not really a traditional technique, but it looks so much better.
Okay, I have another one for you. Have you ever used a technique from a previous costume to make a new one? Like to make it a totally different one.
Hold
Always.
hold
All
that
the
thought
time.
really quick. I actually wanted to quickly throw in here. So this panel was actually inspired by a recreation of a cosplay that I did.
Okay.
Oh, Wander?
Wander, yep. I had made Wander, and it was my first costume to ever win an award at a contest, and it blew my mind. And I talked with the judges afterwards, and they gave me some feedback, and that's when I broke. And I figured out what I wanted to do with cosplay. And then 5 years after that, I remade my Wanderer cosplay, entered it to the contest here at Anime Banzai, and I was like, I want to talk about this and create the impossible, that you can create these impossible dreams and, make it a reality kind of thing. And so, and I got to add as a fun bonus on top of that, I ended up taking Best in Show at Anime Banzai, and I was like crying.
With the remake. It was
So it made
so
that
good.
first time I did this panel extra special, and that's why I keep bringing this back every year, is to show the cosplayers it's like you guys can reach that kind of thing where it's okay to recreate something that you made ages ago, because guess what, they're all still good. Yeah. Anyways, so back to your second question.
Your second question is actually going to cause me to hop onto a soapbox real fast. I have a soapbox that I will die on. So we live our lives in two zones. We live our lives either in the learning zone or the performance zone. This is all based off a TED Talk. So if anyone, don't come at me. This is a TED Talk. I don't remember who gave it, but this is not coming from my own brain. In the learning zone, that's where we try new things. And we're not it's low stakes. We're not afraid of failure. We're going to try new things. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And then there's the performance zone, which is where we're trying to show off for something. So you're trying to win an award or do a good job for just something that has higher stakes. And those apply to not just cosplay, but life in general. And then one reason that people don't improve is they live their lives entirely in the performance zone. They're always wanting to do their best. And when you want to do your best, you don't want to try new things, because new things are scary and you could screw them up. And so I always tell people, you need to have learning zone costumes. You need to make costumes that are super low stakes, that are just for learning. The costume I'm wearing right now, even though I've taken most of it off, is actually a learning zone costume. I did entirely new stuff. I've never worked with foam before. I don't like it. It bothers me. And so I was like, I'm going to try and get over my dislike of foam, and I'm going to make an entire suit of armor out of foam. Not for a competition, not for anything, just for me. And so I used those skills just to try. Low stakes. And if it didn't turn out, it didn't turn out. I also despise wig styling. It terrifies me deep down into my bones. And so I always farm out my wigs to other people. She styled several of my wigs. A bunch of other people have styled my wigs. And I said, nope, with this costume, you have to style your own dang wig. And I did, and I don't love it, but it works. And here we go. And so, and only by being in that learning zone and letting us try new things can we progress in the performance zone. Every costume I do, I learn for something. The whole reason I made this costume out of foam is because I have a very important costume coming up next year that has really intense shoulders. And I have neck issues. And so really heavy shoulders will destroy me. And so I was like, I got to figure out how I can make these out of EVA foam. But I'm not going to use EVA foam for the first time on a costume that I intend for international competition. That's a bad idea. So even though a full suit of armor, you'd think, make that for a competition. I didn't. I was like, just just practice with it. Just get a chance to practice with it. So the short answer to your question is absolutely yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Always learn stuff from previous costumes to take them to your next costume.
Thank you.
That's like, it's incredibly important to do that and to have fun with like what you're working on, because like you did this one for
This is just for
fun.
funsies.
Yeah, and it looks amazing and you might surprise yourself. Come on up.
Okay. Didn't want to interrupt you
Oh,
guys.
you're
Your
good.
face scares me.
I love the mask that you're
Yeah.
wearing.
Thank you.
It's real good. There
All
you
right.
go.
Okay, I'm good. I actually just wanted to mostly ask, and you did just mention like being afraid of wig styling. I am terrified of it, so I just don't. So I just kind of have to wonder, you know, what kind of tips would you give somebody who's just beginning to mess with wigs, really?
Go.
So makeup and wigs are actually my favorite aspect of cosplay. And before I got into cosplay, I didn't wear makeup at all.
No, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Same.
One of our first cons together, I think she actually came out of the bathroom with the makeup bag and goes, "Which one is foundation?"
Like I had
And I was like,
no idea.
"Sweetheart."
And after this, I'm literally doing a panel on makeup.
Now she's a rock star.
So I am all about cosplay allowing you to grow your skill set and trying new things. And when I got into wig styling, I was like, I've never cut hair before. I've never really styled my hair before. I'm like braid or ponytail and I'm good kind of girl. But I was like, but this sounds really fun. So I'm going to try it. I watched a million tutorial videos online. I bought crappy wigs to test on because I didn't want to get like a $40 wig and mess it up. But you get like a $5 wig and you screw it up and you're like, okay, I'm not out that much money. So I would advise, getting a cheap wig to practice on, watching some tutorials, seeing if you have any friends that can kind of give you some pointers or some tips.
Yeah, don't cut your friend's hair.
Yes, don't do that. No. And just try things. A lot of the wig styling that I've done was kind of, I don't want to say like an accident, but it kind of was. Like I was like, maybe this will work. And I did it and I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that works. And it's great. And I've used that technique later on. But it really is just you can get it to look the way that you need to and stay that way, then you're golden. But
Yeah, this wig is one that I already owned. I didn't buy it for this costume. I already had it, and it wasn't quite the color I wanted, but I already owned it. So I was like, you know, if I screw it up, I'm not out anything. I actually have purchased another wig in the color I like that I will be hiring a friend to style. Because this one worked for my learning zone purposes, but I was like, my dream costume is this same character, but in her full queen regalia, and I was like, I ain't styling that wig, because that's not learning zone, that's performance zone. But you buy cheap, just lower your stakes. On whatever new thing you're learning, lower the stakes. Don't ever try to learn a new thing when stakes are high, because that's just going to cause cosplay burnout.
that's what happened to me yesterday.
And stress. Lower them stakes, Addie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible to know. Actually, I always kind of worried that you'd have to get higher price wigs in order to actually learn anything.
Man,
so
nah.
Yeah, the biggest thing you have to pay attention to is sometimes lower quality wigs are not heat resistant. So you'll have to pay attention to that. But Amazon has really upped their game.
This is an Amazon wig.
This is an Amazon wig.
Like
didn't even
Amazon
realize
for
that was a
lace
wig
fronts,
right? Like
that is not her hair.
This-
That
I'm
is
not
her
Mars.
natural hair. She's
that's not my natural
That
hair.
Mars isn't your natural
No.
hair. Oh, you don't have Mizuki on here.
No.
Her hair is more like that though.
Yes, I have brown, dark brown hair.
okay.
But I mean, Amazon has upped its game.
Yeah, Amazon is fantastic. You also have to be careful about the kind of fiber you're getting for like heat resistant purposes. But there's also like the two big wig suppliers are Arta and Epic, and one of the main differences between the two is Arta's fibers are really coarse, which is really great for spiking. Terrible for long wigs. It's gonna be a nightmare. They have their silky line, which is a little better, but Arta classic wigs, so all of Arta's lace fronts are classic, and they're the worst because they just tangle like crazy. So you got to be careful, because don't be too disheartened if you're trying to do crazy spikes on a wig with really soft fibers. That's not
not gonna
you.
work.
That's the wig.
Okay, that's actually
So.
really good to know because I didn't quite know the difference between the two anyway. So
Yes. If
There
you want a
is a
long wig,
difference.
Epic is great.
Epic or Amazon.
Or Amazon or Arta Silky. Arta has their Silky line, which is better.
It's better.
Okay.
But if you want texture and you're gonna spike it, Arta.
Short Arta.
Or some Amazon.
But they are expensive. So cheaper wigs tend to be softer because they're shinier. Mm-hmm. And the shine comes with softness, which you can treat with baby powder. But now we're just going into wig styling.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys so much for your input. I
Yeah,
really
no
appreciate it.
problem. Yeah. Do you want to go up or do you just want to? No. Okay, go for it. Like regular beauty makeup or like full color? Full color. So the question was, what makeup do we recommend for doing full color? Like characters with different skin tones. Do you still have internet?
No, but I have that PowerPoint because that's my next panel.
Oh, that is your next panel. So we'll just open that
Let
up.
me just open that page real fast.
You get 2 for 1.
Here you
There you
go.
go.
There we go. So yeah, and makeup is another one where cost doesn't necessarily reflect quality, except kind of when it comes to your full colors. So for example, another one of my dream costumes is Elphaba Act 2 from the musical Wicked. And I researched specifically the makeup that they use on Broadway, because having to have your makeup stay on while dancing around under stage lights is pretty similar to needing your makeup to stay on while walking around a convention all day. And the makeup that they use, each one of the little cakes is about $30. But it's a beast. It'll stay on. So you've got several different types of makeups. Do you want to talk about them?
Yes, you have your aqua hydro colors that are water-based. So your only downside there is since they are water-based, your sweat is made of water, and so it can be affected.
You paint them on like watercolors. You put water on a sponge, you dip them in, and then you can paint it on your skin.
Yeah. Then there's pancakes, which are, you use pancakes. more than
Clowns
I do.
use pancakes. Yeah, pancakes.
It's pancake in the think of it's pancaked on your face.
Yep.
That's how I always remember it. So it's just kind of a generic flat color. And then there's creams. Creams aren't as good for full face because they're kind of oily.
They are not good for your skin.
They're just more for detailed stuff.
Yeah, so the Aqua Hydra color, one of the issues there is that it dries to a powder finish, which is nice because it's matte and it looks more like skin. But after a while, it will dry and get kind of cracky. The cream doesn't tend to do that, but it is like you're wearing a layer of oil over your skin. So if you've got sensitive skin, prepare to have really unattractive skin for a good long time after that. So yeah, I think the one that I get for Elphaba is considered a pancake.
Mm-hmm. Pancakes are the most generic, good, just across the board for full face makeup.
You can also get alcohol-based makeups that activate with alcohol instead of water, so they won't come off with sweat, but they also don't wash off with water. You have to remove them with a special remover. You also want to be careful to put some kind of barrier between your skin and most full-color makeups because they will stain you. The first time I did Elphaba, luckily it was on a Friday night and I didn't have anywhere to be for 3 days. Because I was just testing out the makeup because I was vaguely green for a couple days because I had not put on a primer and a foundation. So yeah, Krylon is a really common brand. Another really common that a lot of Critical Role cosplayers use because Critical Role is D&D, which has all the fantasy races. They use Meron Paradise. Meron Paradise is super popular. The one that they use on Broadway is called MAC Chromacolor. But yeah, there's a bunch.
So you would suggest the Halloween store?
I wouldn't do Halloween store full face makeup for a convention. They work fine for Halloween because it's just one night. But if you're wearing it all day at a convention where you're going to be walking around and sweating and touching other people, they're typically not high quality enough.
But yeah, TaylorMade has a very good selection of all of these.
TaylorMade is great. Also in Salt Lake County, there's Last Looks FX. They're a really great store. I don't know about stuff up here, up north, because I don't come up here very often. But
Amazon will also generally have the products that you need.
a lot of them.
Yeah.
Fine, I see how it is. I didn't think people could smell my farts that far away.
Nice.
I'm never let anyone tell you I'm not classy.
So one part of the podcast is doing cosplay horror stories.
Let it be
life.
known I've already told yours.
Which one?
The NDK one.
The NDK one. Which one was the NDK one?
The one, bro.
Oh, you mean when I got robbed?
Yeah.
That didn't really have to do with cosplay as much as it happened
But
at
it
a
was
convention.
it was at a convention, and it ends with, and the only thing they didn't steal were her costumes.
Yes, it's true. And then I...
So yeah, I have already shared that
Okay,
story.
so that one's out the window.
That one's done.
Okay, so... Oh, man, I have so many.
Submit them.
I know. Let's see. My entire life?
Oh, Voltron.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Here we go.
That's one that's for both of us.
So, it was Banzai
2016.
of 2016. Voltron was new and
Only one season out.
yes, it was fresh. Everyone was hyped, and we were like, we should do Voltron for the contest. And so we decided I was gonna make Shiro's paladin armor, and she was gonna make Hagar.
Which was a big deal because Hagar had been in, at that point, all of like 3 scenes. And so a lot of people did not even know who she was.
So, and then we got our music. We made we set everything up. We got all
I
ready.
drove the 3 hours to her house to rehearse for a weekend.
So we were set. And then
And it was like 2 weeks before the con, guys. We were set 2 weeks before the con.
I was getting my stuff ready.
Well, that's where this comes. Yeah.
It's like unheard of for
Karma
contests.
decided to kick us.
So it was about 5 days before the convention, and we get a call from
I think it was
Banzai.
less than that. No, it was probably about 5 days. And
was 5 days, and-
you had driven the 3 hours up to my house, and
So-
we were painting our set.
Yeah, we were making the set.
We were in the middle of making the set when we got the call.
We got the call saying, so the plan you had for your skit is not actually approved.
Which we had approved in March.
So it was not actually approved, and they asked if we could do something different, and we're like, of course we can do something different.
Not like
days
our
before
entire
Banzai.
skit revolves around this thing.
So we, after having a bit of a mental breakdown and dancing in the street.
Also, just to clarify, Banzai was really good about this. They
Yes,
felt
they were
super
really
bad.
good.
They gave us free badges for the next year. Like, they were very
We do
apologetic.
not blame them
We are not,
at all.
no animosity toward Banzai.
It was just hilarious. So we're up there and we are like, how do we change the skit? And it just wasn't working. And I had this spur of madness and went, what if I made a completely different outfit? And we were like, and then we could do this, and then we did this, and it really worked
works.
out. And so we were like, oh man, that's the skit we want to do. So I drove home and in 3 days made an entire costume, including a spandex bodysuit, a robot arm, and it was a lot in 3 days. And I drove back up, and the night before we
We rehearsed in the
rehearsed
parking lot
for the very
for the
first,
first time.
We choreographed the whole thing, and then we went and we competed.
And we would have won if it weren't for Mercedes' stupid Wander costume. That was the year Mercedes won Best in Show and we got Best in Master Class, which we were shocked about.
Shook.
But the reason why, so it's veering out of a horror story into advice.
Let's get
That's
real.
how a lot of them
That's
turn.
the reason why we won, because we were honestly super confused, because our costumes were not complicated.
I made it in 3 days.
Yeah, like they weren't, and mine was essentially just this smock. And we were very
very good
confused.
smock.
Well, that's the thing. The next day we went to the cosplay feedback panel, and where you get to talk to the judges, and we essentially went up to the judges and said, why? Why did we win? And they told us it was because it was super clean. Everything was very clean. All our seams were finished. All our stitching was very nice. So even though there were other costumes that had been more complicated, we ended up winning because ours were very clean. So
So that's a tip. It's not all about being complicated. Sometimes it's about making things.
Yeah,
look
because her
clean.
first costume was way more complicated. It was
Oh my
a full
goodness, it
suit
was
of
a
armor.
full suit of armor that I eventually threw away. So that's a horror story
in
in
the
the sense
garbage.
that I threw out hundreds of dollars of EVA foam and spray paint and everything. Anyways,
Didn't want to look at that memory anymore.
no.
What other horror stories do we have?
We can see if anyone, we have some new people coming. Do you guys
yeah,
have any
does anyone else have a
questions
question?
for
Any
the panel?
questions?
In our
We're-
last 5 minutes,
We're recording, so you can come up and talk into the microphone if you want to be recorded for posterity. Or you can just say it and I'll repeat it.
Yeah.
While we try to think of another horror story.
I have a
Shelby's
wedding
making
horror
faces.
story.
Shelby should come up and ask something.
I just
that's
all
a
I think
good
of is
one.
when I spilled makeup.
Yes,
Sorry, this might have already been asked, I think, in like, where
It's all
did you
good.
guys learn? Are you self-taught?
in
Online tutorials? What kind of stuff?
yes.
A mix.
Have you ever
Repeat
taken a
the
sewing
question?
class?
I've never taken a
Oh,
sewing class.
sorry. The question was how did we learn? Were we self-taught? You've never taken a class?
I've never taken, I mean, I took a class from my mom.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. My grandma taught me. My grandma first introduced me to a sewing machine and bought me my first sewing machine. But we made like blankets. We didn't make
Yeah.
clothes.
I made like a prom dress. That was my first
Wow.
exposure
Good for
to
you.
sewing. Well, after I made a skirt and then I made a prom dress because I just, why not?
Yeah, I didn't craft before cosplay. Like I said, I was a book nerd. I read. I had a lot less stuff back then.
But
yeah, so just self-taught,
Online tutorials
internet,
are also amazing.
working with other people, turning to people who are smarter than you.
Yeah. I turned to my mom. I was like, hey, Mom, how do I sew? And she goes, here's a sewing machine. I haven't used it in years. And I made a thing with it, and the sewing machine was broken.
The very first sword I ever made was in Mercedes' in-laws' garage.
Yeah, the sword that actually comes out of its sheath.
Yes. Not the block of wood.
Yeah.
The
yes.
actual sword. Yeah,
Yes.
that was
And
made
now, if you want to make another sword, you can make it in my garage because I now rent
because
a
you
house.
have a garage.
all the
But
tools.
also, I also now have a garage with all the tools.
This is true.
We're so grown up.
I know.
Oh.
Look at this.
But no, the short answer is self-taught and using the internet. Cosplay is very hard to learn any other way because it's weird AF.
And you get any
And
one of us
expensive.
talking about what we like to do, and, we're
we
like,
can't
"This
shut
thing, you
up.
want to come try it out? Come try it out." I just learned how to use a wood lathe the other day. Guys, you want to come try it out? It's awesome.
Oh my gosh, I got a new airbrush and I could not stop telling her to
so
come over and
cool.
use it. It's so cool. Yeah,
But-
no, we love almost all cosplayers love to talk about cosplay. Like whenever people message my page asking for advice, I'm like, my day is made. Let me talk to you.
Please message us and ask us for advice.
We like to talk and say things. Yes,
I think that you probably already answered this during the panel, but
It's all good.
I was wondering about the props, especially like the crown. Is that EVA foam?
No.
Is the jewel is it resin that
Yes.
you mold yourself?
Yes, so the question was on props, specifically about the crown I'm wearing right now. So the crown I'm wearing is actually a base of PVC, which people usually think of pipes, but you can buy PVC in flat sheets, which I'm very, very passionate about. PVC in sheets is kind of my jam. There is a brand of PVC sheet you can buy called Sintra, and people often call all PVC sheets Sintra, which bothers me to no end. I've trained Mercedes to be very careful.
Yes. So my costume that I'm wearing tomorrow has Sintra and Celtec in it. They're both expanded PVC. Celtec's just a little more brittle, but I used both expanded PVC brands in my costume.
Yes. So if you ever hear people talking about Sintra, they're usually just talking about PVC sheets. So that's what this is. It's a plastic. It's the same thing pipes are made out of, but you can buy it in a plastic and then you heat it up and you can bend it. Yes, I did cast all the gems in there myself. I got a pressure pot. Oh my gosh, I only got my pressure pot like 2 weeks ago and it's been Christmas ever since.
You've cast
I've
so
cast
many things.
so much. I've given myself headaches from all the resin. But oh man, it's so satisfying to cast a perfectly clear gem. So, yeah, at this point, I have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of cosplay machinery over the last 6 years. Because like the setup for the pressure pot is about $300. The airbrush was about $200. So that's why I always feel bad whenever a newbie cosplayer comes up and they're like, "How do I make that?" And I'm like, "I'm afraid to tell you." Because I
Sell your kidney.
when I made Titania, actually that costume with the red coat and the axe, that was the first costume I made where I told myself I am not going to settle. I am not going to settle for anything. I'm never going to call anything good enough. That was also the last time I ever set any kind of budget for a costume. And so I don't recommend people do what I do because most people, I am incredibly blessed to be very financially stable. I am a single white girl living in an apartment that I own with a roommate who pays half the mortgage, and I have a very steady income, and I can afford to go hog wild on cosplay. It's okay if you can't do that.
I can't do that.
She can't do that. She's a poor college student who just got married.
So I'm broke. But
I was gonna. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
oh no, you're good. It just goes to show you don't have to have all the nicest equipment to make award-winning costumes.
Nope, abso-freaking-lutely not. I just do because I can, but you don't have to. But if you want to borrow it, you can come over. I like sharing.
Yeah, I'm all about sharing. My first Wanderer cosplay was made out of stuff that I could find. My first sword, I'm actually going to hang it up in the garage eventually and put "We All Start Somewhere" underneath it, because my first sword was actually my Wanderer's sword. And I absolutely love that costume. It still won something, and the tools that I had then for making the sword alone was jigsaw for cutting out the pieces, and what was the good name for it? Rasp.
Rasp.
I like the other name for it, but I won't say it.
No.
Oh, sorry. It's time's up. Time's up. Oh my gosh, they're in the back doing like the timing dance.
Doing the shut up dance.
Yes, it's time to get done. But like that's all I started with. I now have a full wood shop, but that's because that's what I decided to invest in over time. But you can start with whatever you've got around you. Make friends with people who have tools. I'll show you how to use wood lathe, all that stuff. Guys, you can create the impossible.
Absolutely.
You can get there, and that's what this panel's all about. Thank you guys so much. That's it. Thank you. Love
Go
you
home.
guys.